Hello, we've got some more StarCraft. It's a best of 3 coming up. Game 1. So fresh into the series. I am once again Rifkin, joined by Zombie Grub.
Hello, everyone.
And looks like we got 2 interesting names. For once, players we don't recognize. Frost Nova Z and Amy Pie.
I was gonna go with Frost Novas, but yeah, Frost Nova Z works too.
Both on the younger side of the StarCraft spectrum. Not that that's a problem, as we've seen young players turn out to be pretty good at this game.
Well, of course. I mean, it's actually kind of expected ages, I would say, for StarCraft and esports, I guess. I feel like StarCraft 2 has the oldest demographic, but I don't actually know about pro gamers. Well, regardless of that, I'm more interested in the countries they represent. We just don't get to see many players from South Asia playing tournaments, so it's always cool to see what their styles are and what they have to show us.
It's a very interesting bans right off the bat, by the way. We have, for the umpteenth time, seen Dreamcatcher sneak through the vetoes, but most importantly, make it to be their first map. So finally, Rifkin will get to see some Dreamcatcher played in the AESF. But
Okay.
16-bit, I like this map. It's been vetoed a lot. Catalyst gets through almost every veto system so far, so not surprising to see Amy Pie with that.
I've been seeing a lot of Lost and Found and 16 bits. Of course, Darkness Sanctuary being vetoed is my expected. That's what I would expect, but Redshift along with that. But Catalyst, that's fine. 16 bits, that's all good. But Dreamcatcher being the first map should be a more interesting way of playing. Just the map is such a weird design layout that it's really about how you move your army. It's so weird about it.
I really enjoy it. We're going to get to see if you guys enjoy it too, because we're hopping into game 1. To the lower right side, we have the blue Zerg player. It's Frost Nova Z.
In the top left, there's the red Protoss. He is, or she, actually, I don't know, Amy Pie. I didn't catch the name, but I'm going to assume it's a he.
Actually, PVZ, I think we'll see a lot of. This is pretty reflected in all tournaments at the moment. I think shy of some of the elite Korean groups with the top Korean Terrans. We're not seeing a lot of Terrans make it through in general, so not too surprising to see the race distribution reflected here in the AESF.
It's hard to find those non-Korean Terrans, basically, foreigner Terrans, and no, I'm not too surprised to see a lot of Protoss and Zerg representation. But how are these guys going to play? I mean, I think we see usually people try and mimic the pros, so regardless of their skill level, which I don't really know, we're going to find out here, they usually try and replicate the builds that we see from the big dogs, basically. And I really hope that Frost Novas goes for Ling, Baneling, Hydra. Amy Pie would expectedly go into Archons, but sometimes you get those weird styles. Mass Phoenix, straight to carriers, that type of stuff, although I don't think Dreamcatcher is going to be the map for that.
Well, we're also seeing quite a large variety in terms of like what actual skill level there is to this. Being so many qualifiers from so many regions, we are seeing some players who are very vastly outclassed by others, and some of these games are closer. I think it's going to be really interesting to see game 1 here and just trying to assess who really has control of the matchup. I really like this, by the way, Amy Pie, because SimCity is very important when it comes to Protoss, and the last thing you want to do is leave any openings for Zerglings or other units to slip on by.
Well, this is a wall-off you would typically... I don't think he did that right.
He was like checking with the Zealot, too.
Okay, well, maybe it is right. But this is a wall-off you would see if they had scouted that it was, in fact, an early pool. This is a really late Nexus, all things considered. I mean, this wasn't just a Gateway Cybernetics Core Nexus, it was Gateway Cybernetics Core Gateway or something like that, right? That's pretty late, and the Zealot ultimately looks really useless. I know that, and I had this too, like someone who doesn't play Protoss a lot, getting that Adept and sending it across the map, or 2 Adepts sending it across the map, does not feel like it is right. Oh, a big supply block here. But it is like you actually are supposed to be the one that kind of forces the Zerg to get Lings. You're not the one that's supposed to be scared unless you scout for an early pool, of course.
That goes down to these players' histories, though. Maybe Amy Pie has just lost to this too many times, and we've seen great Protoss players lose to a pylon going down and creating a 4-minute loss. Something you want to avoid at all costs, maybe.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And he's still getting an Adept here, and that hopefully will go across the map, because that's your That's your next scout. The probe only gets so much done. The probe, in fact, usually leaves after checking the 2 bases. Maybe it sees a 3rd base be put down, but then that's where the adept comes
Ooh.
in, and most likely an oracle. But we actually have a robo opener, which might not be that bad. Frost Novas did get a very fast Roach Warren.
Yeah, that was actually really key. The Overlord barely scouted that. Like, I really want to stress, like, if it had been like a couple of degrees northward, it might not have actually seen it. Not that it's terrible, but you know it's a robo, so you start weighing your options of like what can you or can't you do. And enough roaches can overwhelm immortals, but is he willing to cut and go for that kind of all in? Right now, there's no drones on the production tab after all. A little bit scary.
No. Okay, all right. It's going to be an attack. I saw a couple of drones here and there. Wondering, I'm afraid that this is more of just a apprehensive Zerg. The same way we were talking about Amy Pie being a little bit apprehensive, building that wall off as soon as possible. A Zerg player could build a Roach Warren because they're afraid, but we're getting a little stalled out because of the Overlord supply blocks. We don't know what the intention is here to make. Still supply blocks. He didn't realize. Oh, that really hurts. Oh my gosh, that's a long supply block.
The nice thing is, though, mechanically for Zerg, while the supply block is pretty bad, and let's not beat around the bush, because he's doing kind of this all-in, it's almost alright. You're not really relying on your drones coming out of... Well, I take it back, he starts building drones. I was gonna say, if he was just building a ton of roaches, fine, your larva banks up, you got 700 minerals, you just hold that roach button down, right? But I take it all back, because it's drones, and I now really, really judge harshly how bad that supply block affected him.
That was really bad for him not to realize. To get caught once, but then immediately make 2 or 3 overlords that's even a little bit better than what actually happened. Which he was caught, made only 1 overlord to replace it, and was just supply blocked again because he was that far into a deficit. This is just looking like a really, really weird game on both fronts. But I do think I like how Amy Pie is playing it a little bit more. It's not the most orthodox opener, but I get the idea here. It is going to be going into a charge lot. Immortal attack, and while Frost Novas might do well with Roaches, Ravagers, and Lings, there's the numbers problem. The build just isn't really working out here for our Zerg.
No, we're gonna... It's funny, there's no actual +1 weapons to go with this, but the charge alone is gonna start turning this to a very A-movie army for our Protoss. Okay, maybe he played a bit defensive, maybe he didn't actually get to this point where he was ready to go for a quick Nexus and play Greed. That's fine, but because of all this, he's got more buildings to work with, more gateways. 5 more being slapped down, and with that Warp Prism coming out on the map, I think Amy Pie is the one who's going to turn this into the all-in.
Yeah, for sure. Frost Nova's just caught... Well, the supply block was deadly, but to be honest, even if that didn't happen, the Roach attack didn't seem like it was going to do very well. It was a little mistimed. It was going to be up against a Robo build. And now you just have this position where you did not drone enough. You don't even have a 3rd base, so Larva should be a problem if they're using it 100%. And, there's other problems so to take into account, and that is just not having enough. Hands down. They might be a bigger armor supply right now, but here comes the Warp Prism, and Roaches just demolished by Immortals.
Yeah, it's not just that it's Immortals with a lot properly backing it up. He's got vision through the Observer, so he sees the high ground, he knows exactly what that army supply looks like, and this is going to be terribly awkward because there's going to be a wall of Bladed Zealots in front of this. Amy Pie was banking up 1,200 minerals, with so many gateways to work off of, not going to be difficult to... A little bit supply blocked at the moment, so kind of awkward. But with those pylons finishing up, so many zealots are going to warp in on the next wave.
Yeah. Yeah, good, at least in acknowledging that it's going to be supply blocked, so 4 pylons should do the trick. And this should be a case where he just moves in and kills Frost Novas. I am a little worried now that Frost Novas is getting to a better tech. Those Hydras, buffered by the Roaches, it might be a little more complicated, but numbers and the hard counters of Immortals here should just do the trick.
Yeah, I wanted to hype up the Zealots charging in, but frankly, the Zealots aren't what matters the most. They're just cannon fodder. Sentries still standing. Force fields will go on that ramp, and while maybe a couple of the sentries bleed out, the Immortals are just not being touched. The Warp Prism's still on the backside of this, warping units in. The Immortals have their barriers, for God's sake, so this game is pretty much over. In one swift, fell swoop, Amy Pie demolishes the Blue Zerg.
Kind of got to do his builds, didn't really have much to think about. I think that there was maybe some nerves coming into play because, you see a Zerg play without a 3rd base. But the Robo was a smart option, and the Robo going into the Charge at Immortal All-In was a great decision. I don't know if that was pre-planned or not, but oh boy, did it really work. GG.
Well, Amy Pie takes a very nice Game 1 victory. setting them off quite well in this best of 3. I was going to note, though, and while this might sound like a bit of a joke, this has got some harsh truth to it. Were they really fighting each other, or their supply counts more that game?
That's a good question. I think there was a bit of fighting themselves. I think the Zerg player in particular fought himself more than Amy Pie fought himself.
Well, you know what? You might actually be entirely correct for that. I'd love to go back, rewind, and see the time, because I feel like he spent more time supply blocked than that battle took to kill him at the end.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That was, again, the Protoss opening up with the wall maybe would have been a little overly defensive, but I saw like that was, I would see a pro gamer do that maybe a little bit faster, maybe even, a little bit better, but what the Zerg was doing, Frostnovas was doing, he was going to fall behind kind of no matter what choice he made. Even if he had made Mutas, for instance, I still think that was just too bad of an economy for what Zerg really needs nowadays in 2018. Maybe back in 2010 that would have been fine.
Yeah. Well, either way, let's hope he can lick his wounds and recover, because he's got another game to fall back on. With these being best of 3s, he's got 1 life left. We'll revisit the map vetoes here in just a second. We'll see which map was his choice, of course, out of this, again, pretty standard map pool. Dreamcatcher being the first map was the only thing that threw me for a loop, but the way it was just played, hardly played to Dreamcatcher, the rocks weren't broken down, anything like that.
It was just a push across the middle of the map, which makes it look like a normal map when really it should look really abnormal. But Frostnova's pick is 16-bit.
Okay.
So very macro-oriented. Usually, I feel like anytime there's an in-base expansion, Protoss generally like it, right? I mean, there's Dusk Towers, and they love that map, so surprised they let it through. And then, I didn't even really notice this. Frostnova's banned Darkness. That's usually the Zerg favorite. Huh.
Actually, going back to the in-base expansion, it's kind of funny you bring that up, because while it's intuitive that a Zerg might like it too, they tend to avoid it and take it like a 4th or a 5th, but alright folks, we'll see what he does this game. To the top right, kicking things off. He's fighting for his life. It's Frostnova Z.
In the bottom left is the red Protoss. It is Amy Pie.
I see that Amy P, and I'm like, Amy Pond? Doctor Who? Nerd reference anybody?
That's not what I was thinking of. I don't know what it is. I mean, okay, I know a little bit of what I'm thinking of and why I think of it. Because it's pie. But for some reason, it really reminds me of like Ned's Pie from Pushing Daisies. But I don't think there's a character named Amy in there.
That's an obscure reference.
I don't think it's obscure so much as it is old. A lot of people liked the show. I remember when it was, actually running, and then like everything else from Brian Fuller, it died a horrible death.
Yeah, it's crazy actually, because I was just not even about an hour ago talking with some friends about Lost, just kind of the same generation of TV show timings, but
very different TV shows.
Oh, absolutely. I think the first episode of Lost probably had the same budget of the entire series of Pushing Daisies.
Maybe. Pushing Daisies had that weird aesthetic that always looked like it was slightly photoshopped everywhere,
Yeah. But
anywho.
16-bit expanding like this is a little bit dangerous to do. For the Protoss, it's okay in this instance, but there's no low ground to take advantage of. There's no ramp over here. It's all flat surface areas, so you don't get that inherent advantage of roaches funneling up blindly to see what they're going to run into. That's a little bit risky, but the safe approach, still with a wall off before the Nexus. Yes, it's more expensive and delays your Nexus, but it also reduces the chance you'll die miserably and embarrassingly.
Yeah, let's pinpoint that too for a second. Last game, you're talking about being defensive and overly defensive. It's because you built a Zealot and then a Adept and then a Stalker, I think was the order of things. But the Adept didn't even shade out, did it? It just stayed at home. So we do see 2 gate openers in this matchup, but they're very aggressive. They're supposed to make 2 and then 4 Adepts and really force a lot out.
Going for the Zealot again, by the way.
Yeah, so that's where I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, he just is paranoid of early aggression. A little bit of wanting to take the natural here in 16-bit too. So that's kind of cool instead of taking the in-base natural. But yeah, this is just, it's not usually ideal.
a lot of these guys competing in this competition, you know, this is a pretty big deal for them. Well, this is just the qualifier stage, and it's not a lot on the line. I can totally understand, like, you don't want to have your tournament end to something silly, so you play really defensive. And while in some cases that could hurt you, so far, at least with what happened in game number 1 and what we're seeing here in game number 2, this isn't going to adversely affect Amy Pie too badly.
No, it's not. Especially after seeing game number 1, I think that Amy Pie should feel very confident in the mid to late game. We have Frostnovas once again going for like his own version of this defensive style for Zerg, getting that Roach Warren surprisingly fast. And while it could lead to a Roach Ling all in, what we saw was a supply block, and maybe not being supply block will change things up, but we saw more drones, a faster layer, and just not an ideal setup for the first 6 or 7 minutes.
Actually, I think
they're doing very similar things.
That's a point worth hitting on, though, for a second here, because first, again, this might be an all-in. We'll see if he continues to cut workers or not, but it's something where roaches aren't even the best defensive thing to rush out like that, right? Like, if it's adepts coming to your mineral line, 3 roaches aren't going to stop them. You're going to need the lings and the queens surround and do all these other things.
Yeah. Even amongst the pros, the roach defense always has like a couple of weaknesses, right? Like they're slower until you have that roach speed, and they don't provide as much counterattack opportunity if you do find yourself with an abundance of them. They also get those super hard countered by an immortal, and yeah. So I love seeing the pros because they can masterly use masked lings, but if you're talking about the easiest unit to use, it's probably going to be the roach. Like you can kind of just stand still and hope that you have more numbers than your opponent, which unfortunately Frostnovas is not going to have once again with a very similar opener.
I am just keeping an eye on Frostnova's production tab. It is suspicious. It is kind of leaning more towards the all-in, I feel, this game than last game, but the layer then throws me off, and I'm like, maybe a Nidus Worm?
And there's an evolution chamber, which is what I was like, okay, this isn't... If it is going to be nothing but roaches, it's not ideal, once again.
He's weaving drones back into the build. I'm starting to think Frostnova is just like a little wonky when it comes to this.
Yeah, I think this is what person we look at and we say you just need a little bit of structure. You know, you need to get a build order up until 7 minutes, and then you'll feel so much better about playing Zerg. Whereas right now, matching base for base against Protoss, unless you're doing something really, Albany like a Nidus Worm, and it'd be cool if you did, that's just not going to get you into a good place in the mid to late game. I think the only option to win this game, in fact, would be a Nidus Worm, but because it's another Robo Immortal opener, there's not enough numbers. There's not a good counter, I don't think. And it is going to be a Nidus, so that's awesome to see. That makes more sense for the 2-base layer, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be enough.
Oh, did he wall his Immortals in too tightly? That's funny.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if he keeps his energy high enough, Amy Pie can always pull a recall off in a clutch situation, so if he awkwardly moves out as the Nidus Worm hits, it's totally feasible he gets back in time to defend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just remember, recall exists, right?
But this vision is not exactly in Amy Pie's, and he's not going to see the Overlord, or more importantly, that Nidus Worm when it comes down.
I did kind of want to mention, but we talked about some other things, that like Amy Pie has not gotten a lot of great scouting because of the way that he opens. You know, we have one probe scout, but then we have no adept shading forward, no observer being made immediately, and no Stargate opener. So if Frostnovas had done something more like a Baneling bus, I think that'd be really good. But the observer does see the amount of roaches. That's really a nice catch. He would have been surprised otherwise, even though his army is good against it. Even
though he wanted to go for a Nidus Worm, by the way, not able to build one. He's staying at home ready to defend the fight. So this is unfortunate. We count out the Evolution Chamber, total waste of money. Nidus Worm, total waste of money and gas right now. So much of this game has not been used efficiently for Frostnova, and I'm not bringing this up to really harp on him, but it is worth noting that is a good 8 or something roaches that could have otherwise been made for the army, or to help him not be supply blocked with overlords.
Yeah, or, going up to Hydralisk. He was pretty close to having Hydras in the last game, and that
I think he did have like 3 or 4.
Yeah, maybe as they popped, but if he had them all together with the roach buffer, then that army is a lot more doable if you have an army lead. But Frostnovas does not have an army lead, and it's pure roaches, so that's not looking so hot.
Well, the attack test commands on those force fields are keeping everything in range of the Zealots. In fact, they kill everything so quickly, the force fields still haven't worn off, so they keep the Zealots away, but that's all right. The Immortals tear this apart, and this is just... it's over, frankly. Frostnova's got bamboozled once again. It looks like Amy Pie has found some strength in the PvZ matchup.
seems to really enjoy this build. I think if anyone else were to watch this, they could think of some ways to hard counter or even take advantage of the lack of scouting in the early game like I was talking about. But
Well, I think
Frostova's just try to do his own thing too.
I think it's a little what he was thinking about, but GG's get called, and Amy Pie will take the series with a very solid 2-0, so congratulations, Amy Pie.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another game here from the StarCraft 2 preliminaries for the esports event at the Asian Games located in Jakarta, Indonesia later on this year. My name is GTR and I will be providing some English commentary for some of these preliminary games that are being played right now. This particular game is a group stage game from the South Asian portion of the preliminaries. This is between Ghost Khan, 21-year-old Terran from Pakistan, against Amy Pie, a Protoss from Sri Lanka. Both of these players from countries where cricket is the main game, but I want to see how well these guys do in StarCraft 2. To go to the map ban and pick stage, the process for the bans and picks is exactly the same process as it is for the WCS Global tournaments. Therefore, our map pool for this series, the first map will be on Dreamcatcher, followed by Acid Plant if Ghost Khan wins this game, and if Ghost Khan loses, we will be going to 16-bit. In terms of the bans, Ghost Khan deciding to ban Catalyst and Lost and Found, Amy Pie deciding to ban Darkness Sanctuary and Redshift. We've been seeing a lot of Redshift being banned throughout this preliminary stage. I suppose a lot of players aren't familiar with it, not really comfortable with it, and with that, let's get straight into the game. Spawning here at the bottom right as the blue Terran from Pakistan, Ghost Khan. And at the top left as the red Protoss from Sri Lanka, Amy Pie. Alright, so we got a quick scout here from Amy Pie, sending that first probe out from that pylon that was built at the main base. Dreamcatcher is a very large map, so you want to get the scouting out as soon as possible. And given the fact that the map is very large, there's a lot of places where you can place proxy buildings. A lot of Terrans do like to proxy a barracks or even a factory or starport on this map because there's so many ways of placing that proxy building, but in this case, it doesn't appear that Ghost Khan will be doing a proxy. Scouting probe here from Amy Pie does some damage to the SCV that's building the barracks, but luckily for Ghost Khan, he will deflect that away with one of the SCVs that is now completing that wall. Therefore, the probe won't be able to come into the base of Ghost Khan. And actually, it's not a tight wall for Ghost Khan, so unfortunately for him, the probe will be able to come in and he'll be able to see the second barracks being built as well from Ghost Khan. Okay, so he sees that there is a second barracks being built before Command Center, and even with that, he decides to risk it and go for the Nexus. Given the map distance, the rush distances between these two bases, I believe that Amy Pie feels pretty confident that he will be able to defend from any sort of quick attack that Ghost Khan decides to throw at them. Got some further harassment here from Amy Pie with the probe. He's also got the quick gas to get the Marauders out. Ghost Khan Let's see if he can actually apply any sort of pressure with these two barracks, or whether he'll just go for a quick command center afterwards. And it looks like he's going for the factory, so no sort of economic play at all from Ghost Khan. Looks like he will want to do some sort of one base attack. Alright, so Amy Pie is actually going for the robotics rather than the Stargate. Perhaps he feels that Ghost Khan will be going for some sort of mech unit, whether it be a Cyclone, reacted Hellions. Getting the Immortal out would be really good to help defend. And even if there is Banshees, he can just get the Observer instead of going for the Oracle for that detection. The expansion of Amy Pie is finally completed. Transfers a few probes, not too many. Doesn't want to take away too many probes from that main base. As he also adds a second gateway. You'll definitely need to get more units out here, knowing that Ghost Khan is only working off one base at the moment. And as expected, there is the quick Immortal here from Amy Pie. That Immortal will be such a great boost to his defense in the case that Ghost Khan decides to attack in the next few minutes. Ghost Khan doesn't feel like he wants to get any sort of upgrades on those bio units. We don't see any concussion shells or combat shields or stim pack. And another gateway being added here from Amy Pie. Amy Pie definitely knows what is coming up. I would like to see some shield batteries though from Amy Pie, help with the defense, and especially to keep that Immortal alive. Alright, so it looks like, oh, here come the boys. We've got a lot of SVs coming out here. Although, to be frank, when you're sending out that many SEVs for, what is it, 2 or 3 Cyclones, it's not really worth the risk. Then again, this is a one base all-in, and oh no, Amy Pie scouts this all-in here with the probe that's just sitting there at the destructible rocks. And Ghost Khan doesn't even kill off that probe because he was just moving his army as opposed to attack moving. Let's see how well these force fields are from Amy Pie. Amy Pie moves back here, but the SCV has actually come up. Or the army of Ghost Khan actually comes up, actually. Let's see if Amy Pie decides to pull out the probes from the expansion to help defend from this. There's one force field to help defend the main ramp. SV actually gets in. Oh no, the Immortal goes down. But I think there's enough warp gates here from Amy Pie that they're going to be able to defend from this. One warp gate is unpowered from that pylon being destroyed. Let's see if the Chrono Boost goes down onto that robo facility to get that Immortal out. Oh, really poor targeting there from Ghost Khan. Starts to target the buildings, Twilight Council, and the pylon as opposed to the units. That's what he needs to be doing right now. Here comes transfer the surround again from probes. It should be enough to kill off the remaining amount of Ghost Khan's army, and with this Immortal, as well as these 2 Stalkers, it should be enough. Check out the supply count from both players. We've got 20 workers and 9 units of value from Amy Pie. Ghost Khan only has 15 workers and only just 6 supply worth of army. You have to remember as well though, even though Amy Pie did lose, 21 workers in that exchange, he does have 2 bases and he does have Chrono Boost to work with, so he can easily get his probe count back to what it was before. When we looked at what Ghost Khan has right now, a pitiful amount of workers. He's only on 1 base as well, doesn't have too much in terms of orbital energy. And it looks like Amy Pie can just waltz in right now and take the victory because Ghost Khan doesn't really have much to defend with. He's only got these 2 barracks, he's got a factory. But with the army composition that Amy Pie is consisting their army of, there's not really much Ghost Khan can do about it. And we could see with 2 bases, Amy Pie is exponentially getting ahead in this game. Alright, so here comes 2 Marines and 2 Marauders. This might just be the last dish effort here from Ghost Khan. Gets easily destroyed by the army of Amy Pie. And GG, Amy Pie with the nice defense there from the all-in takes out that first game on Dreamcatcher. Very nice defense there from Amy Pie. Takes out that first game on Dreamcatcher. He's one game ahead on this series. Only one player will advance from this South Asian preliminary group to the Grand Finals in Jakarta, Indonesia later this year. Ghost Khan being a bit too ambitious there with his all-in, sending a bit too many SCVs there, considering the amount of mech units he had in that army attack. Let's see if he can make up for it in the next game. Maybe he'll just draw out the game, try and play a macro game, or whether he'll just do the same exact thing. Once again, my name is GTR. I will be providing English commentary for some of these preliminary matches for the Asian Games. Esports for the first time will be a demonstration event at the Asian Games this year, and StarCraft 2 will be one of the games that will be part of that esports event. As a demonstration event, there will be no medals awarded towards the actual final tally of the tournament, but obviously participants will be getting awards, and they'll also have the pleasure of representing their country at Asia's largest regional sports tournament. Now, okay, so we're just waiting on the next game to start. Really good play there from Amy Pie, actually, with that defense. Using sentries quite well, microing that Immortal, taking advantage of Ghost Khan's flaws, as we once again see the map bound and pick stage. As Ghost Khan did lose that previous game on Dreamcatcher, we'll be going towards 16-bit as the next game. If Amy Pie loses this game, we'll be going on to their pick of Acid Plant for the third and final set. 16-bit, one of the more newer maps in the WCS map pool, as well as the ladder map pool. Two-player map. Very standard layout, as you can see on the screen. Very similar to two-player maps such as Cloud Kingdom and Daybreak. Alright, so we're just waiting on this game to start. Alright, let's get into it. Spawning here at the top right as the blue Terran from Pakistan, it is Ghost Khan. And spawning here at the bottom left as the red Protoss from Sri Lanka, Amy Pie. Alright, so we've got Ghost Khan building the first supply depot at the wrong ramp. As you can see, the observer noting that the ramp should be, the supply depot, if you want to wall off, should be placed at the smaller ramp rather than the larger ramp. Or perhaps Ghost Khan wants to do some sort of weird unorthodox wall off. Perhaps walling off both ramps, but looks like it's going to be a 2-barracks build from him. Amy Pie sending in that scout very early on. He's going to get some probe damage done with the scout. Let's see if he can actually get the scout, the SV building the barracks guild. Does seem so, as Ghost Khan sends out another SEV to deflect that probe. Luckily for Amy Pie, that probe's HP is still ticking at 20. Alright, so we got the first barracks down for Ghost Khan, completed. Let's see if Amy Pie can actually get this SEV. Let's see if there's a block, and no! Ghost Khan losing that SEV there from Amy Pie's probe. Now with his marine out, the probe will have to fall out of Ghost Khan's base, but the damage has to be done. Amy Pie kills one SCV, scouts the complete build order of Ghost Khan, and no surprises here, he goes for the quick expansion and the cybernetics core as he did in the previous game. Once again, this map is not as large as Dreamcatcher, but The rush distances are large enough that Amy Pie feels pretty confident in going for that quick Nexus. Alright, so this should be a factory. Indeed it is. So we're going to see a similar build from Ghost Khan. A similar build from the first match on Dreamcatcher, where he gets that really quick factory after those 2 barracks. And most likely is going to do some sort of one base attack. On the other hand, Amy Pie also doing a build similar to what was displayed in the first game, getting the quick robotics facility to get the Immortal out, also getting that second gateway to add to the army count. Better to be safe than sorry in terms of playing against a one base player, so he's going for that extra gateway as opposed to doing any further tech, such as maybe adding a Stargate or a Twilight Council. Right, so Amy Pie sacrificing that probe to just make sure of Ghost Khan's army composition. And no surprises there, it's going to be Marines and Marauders. Also got the Cyclones being built from the factory. So indeed, it will be a similar build as the previous game. And I like this adaptation here from Amy Pie. Sees that the build is similar if not the same from that last game. So it adds the shield battery. Shield battery will do a great job of keeping the units alive for Amy Pie, especially that Immortal. Having that Immortal to tank all those hits, so essential in a Protoss defense. Alright, shield battery is done for Amy Pie. Let's see if they will add another shield battery to help augment the defense that they will be doing against this one base attack of Ghost Khan. Cyclones being pumped out of that factory. And okay, so we've got the first deviation here from that previous game. We see combat shields being researched from Ghost Khan. Wants to get that little bit of oomph, little bit of a health increase from those Marines, as those Marines do make up the bulk of his army composition so far. Alright, so we got 2 mortals out here for Amy Pie. Amy Pie deciding that 2 mortals will be enough to defend from any sort of attack shenanigans Ghost Khan decides to do. Now he's getting the Observer as well to just make sure, just to 100% confirm what Ghost Khan is doing. Really like this gateway placement as well, narrowing the choke of his expansion. Alright, so here goes Ghost Khan's army coming up here. Let's see how much health, how much shields are able to be healed onto the Stalker. Stalker does go down, but one force field is deployed. Doesn't really do too much, but this shield battery is actually out of energy at the moment. But these 3 Immortals should be enough to take care of these Marauders and that Cyclone that's coming up. Oh, the Immortal being microed back. Ghost Khan doesn't actually recognize that Immortal is being microed back, and all these Immortals and those Stalkers take out the Cyclone. So with these 3 Immortals, we've got a healthy Stalker count here. Ghost Khan's army count is down to 6, and we've got an expansion here from Ghost Khan. Slightly misplaced, but not that big of a deal at the moment. He can just lift that off once he decides to mine from there. And it looks like Amy Pie is just getting further tech. He's getting speed upgrade for his Zealots actually, as well as the War Prism. Don't see any sort of third base coming down here from Amy Pie. So it looks like once this War Prism is warped into the game, looks like Amy Pie will be delivering the final blow onto Ghost Khan. Alright, so we got the army of Amy Pie marching up here to the base of Ghost Khan. Ghost Khan doesn't really have much to work with. He's only got 5 Marines as well as 1 Marauder. He's also getting a siege tank to help defend from any sort of attack, but Amy Pie is pretty much triple in supply. He's got the Zealot here just to make sure that it's safe to attack. And with the War Prism now, Amy Pie is going to march forward. We'll see if Amy Pie can take out this game here. Siege tank finally completed, and actually we got a quick Ghost Academies, Ghost Khan getting some nukes. Given his ID, doesn't surprise me. I guess he likes those ghosts, but it doesn't really matter. Amy Pie just waltzing in here with this massive army. 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport. Not enough production here from Ghost Khan, and we should be seeing the GG. There we go, GG Ghost Khan. The victory goes to Amy Pie. So congratulations to Amy Pie. They will take the victory 2-0 over Ghost Khan and take home 2 points for them in this South Asian preliminary group for the StarCraft 2 portion of the esports event at the Asian Games. Once again, congratulations to Amy Pie. Alright, so let's have a look at the group stages for these preliminaries so far. In the East Asian group, we've got Maru on 5 points, Nice on 4 points. Those 2 players will be advancing to the grand finals. In Southeast Asia, we do have Mayo Micah from Vietnam, as well as Strike from Thailand, being the top 2 players from that preliminary group region. They will be advancing as well to the grand finals. In terms of the South Asian region, we've got Amy Pie on top, followed by Frost Novas from the Maldives, and then follow that is Ghost Khan. So it looks like Amy Pie is in the lead there for the South Asian region. As for both the West Asian region and the Central Asian region preliminaries, we haven't seen those games yet, so hopefully we'll be able to find out who will be qualifying from those regions. Need to point out though that Central Asia only has 1 participant, so we can only assume that they will be the one that will be advancing from that preliminary.
Another best of 3. What do you know, Zombie Grub?
What do I know?
That's a good question. Well, I think we're about to become acquainted with a lot of knowledge about these players. We got Demigod versus Aragon King.
Wow, what a set of names. And wow, one of the oldest players I've seen play. Aragon King is 37. Huh.
Yeah, and even his opponent pushing 27 is not too young himself.
Feels old. I'm 27.
Feels old, man. Well, Rifkin and Zombie Grub coming at you guys with a fresh best of 3 here for the West Asia portion of these qualifiers for the Asian Electronic Sports Federation.
Yeah, interesting as always to see people from countries that I usually don't see playing StarCraft. And we're gonna have a TVZ, so maybe having no idea how either of these players play. I mean, Demigod, I thought maybe it was Demilove first. I was like, wait, no. Don't know how he plays, but he's Terran, so maybe I'll be rooting for him a little bit. But here are the bans and picks. We do have Dreamcatcher making it through as the first map.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. We'll see how these players consider playing it, but while I'm not surprised to see Darkness Sanctuary banned, I am still, as always, surprised to see Redshift picked.
Yeah, by our Zerg player, though.
Yeah,
as I quickly remembered.
He strategically banned Catalyst, the safest map you could possibly have, no matter what race you play, and went with Redshift.
Yeah, I mean, Demigod banned Darkness, which I guess it would have been maybe his other pick, but yeah, for him to choose Redshift, he must like how weird the games can get.
Well, I'm excited if that's the kind of player we have at hand here. Or maybe these map vetoes were just done willy-nilly.
Yes, that's also possible. Acid Plant making it through, it is one of the normal maps from our last season, so that's just, I don't know, not too worth talking about, but right, we got Dreamcatcher and Redshift are more interesting maps of the season.
Well, the most interesting part's going to be who loses in picks. We'll find out now as we get into game number 1. Spawning to the top left side, the blue Terran, Demigod.
In the bottom right is the red Zerg. He is Aragon King.
Like, zero to hero.
Which one of these is Zero to Hero?
The Demigod.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, Hercules
You started
wasn't
singing
a
after
full god.
Aragon King, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that wasn't in Lord of the Rings version.
Yeah, but there wasn't enough time to do it, man. We had to get those intros in.
Well, that makes more sense then.
Well, I like me a good old TVZ. I hope these guys are close in skill. We've yet to quite see anything that's truly the most epic game of all time, but hoping for good games nonetheless.
Yeah. Certainly we'll see, I think, with their build orders, as TVZ is, you know, pretty... I know, like, for the first 6 or 7 minutes, really, maybe unless they do it 2-on-1, I feel like you just get to see how their macro looks. There's a little poking and prodding, maybe there's a Ling run by, but there's really a lot of macro. So you can really see, like, okay, that person's missing a supply depot, this person's not getting to third base on time. We might see, like, who's looking a little bit better just with the macro information we have, but a drone scout is already unusual.
Yeah, that was something where it's like, is he gonna proxy hatch, but then he took his hatchery at home. The other part I'm looking at that's kind of funny, and this is, an overreaction to an SCV. I was gonna mention is Aragon King, I believe, is the older of the two of these players, correct?
Right, yeah.
It is reflecting in his APM.
Oh, wow, Ripken.
Shots fired, I know. No, it's not even like anything negative. It's just surprising because we're so used to watching Zerg players. You get the larva mechanics, the hockeys flying left and right, warming your fingers up. I'm just used to seeing that number be a lot higher than double digits.
You know, I was talking about how I think we're already going to see, like, within the first 6 minutes, maybe, you know, whose skill is better just with their build orders. Aragon King, the drone scout is not, like, the weirdest thing that you can do. I don't want to say that was a signifier at all, but he did wait to get his spawning pool at 20 supply, and that's a pretty late one. Latest is usually, I would say, 18. That pairs up with the hatchery first, and you can build your queens at the same time. Now you see this very awkward timing.
Yeah,
the Reaper's still waiting for that.
The Reaper's coming in, and there's nothing to oppose it but drones. And maybe, just maybe, Demigod gets a little cocky and gets caught surrounded by drones. Almost goes down for a second, but that's a little bit of basic Reaper micro is no problem. There's no queens shooting back at this Reaper.
Or no Lings quite yet to soak up the shots either, which is usually what's happening at this point. But that's because the spawning pool was late. So finally 6 Lings are on the way.
It's noteworthy, though, and this is kind of funny to me, because he really didn't know the timing of this. Or at least maybe he didn't know the exact timing, I should say more precisely. He was playing really scared with that Reaper. He really could have gotten to town on that mineral line. And I don't just mean like killing 4 or 5 drones, but denying mining entirely as they all chase after the Reaper type thing. I'm not trying to be too negative, but I'm just like, Demigod missed out on an opportunity because his opponent created a huge opening for him.
I definitely agree. I'm just thinking, like, you know, his APM is good. You know, you brought that up. I was looking at Demigod. It's pretty good. So he definitely has the actions, but it might be one of those things where he is more nervous about playing some guy he doesn't probably play against much. And he's like, I want to make sure it's alive for scouting. And this guy's giving me a golden opportunity for scouting. So let's not ruin it by getting, you know, silly surrounded by drones. But the Lanes just made their way across the map.
Wow.
They're actually going to get a mule and an SCV, but the Hellen's going to take care of everything here.
I'm more astonished that Supply Depot finished. I don't know how many games we've cast on here, but that thing's at 100 out of 100, not complete.
Yeah, that's true. These things still will not have speed, so the Reaper could chase on every single one. The Hellions could have continued chasing. He's probably expecting speed to finish up at any time. The Reaper is going to be surrounded, so I guess Demigod was too busy fixing things back at home, maybe overcompensating a little bit, like for instance with this wall.
It was kind of awkward too, because both players had move commanded in poor ways, and had those links surrounded sooner, it would have been down immediately. But ooh, we got defensive spine crawlers coming up, and it's not the right defensive building you need. We got Banshees following this, and unfortunately, spine crawlers do not shoot up.
That's a very good point. They don't. I think those are cloakless banshees though, so maybe an extra queen will help take care of that. But there's still not much out to deal with these Hellions if they just want to run right on through it. There's only like 2 or 3 roaches.
Yeah, but so for those who don't know, Banshee can take on 1 queen at a time, and because of this later spawning pool and kind of slower macro, we'll say, he doesn't have that many queens. When we're used to seeing 6 or 7 even at this point, there's barely even 2. So the Hellions run by, not much to stop these bad boys. Some drum barbecue, delicious I hear on the Eastern Asian side of the world.
The barbecue's delicious everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
There's a really unfortunate time to morph the Ravager. Even a little bit of extra damage with the Spine Crawler maybe would have made this like not 18 drone skilled, maybe like 9.
Well, we had talked about it being cloakless, but it was only a temporary pause because cloak is about halfway done, a little over halfway done even. And these banshees, I mean, just again, without cloak, I think would do incredibly well. With cloak, will be unstoppable.
Yeah, still no Spore Crawler at that natural. At least he made one in the main base, but that's easily dodged around. A bit of an alive Spore Crawler right there. And the natural is just wide open. If there was intent to take a third, I don't think Aragon King would be able to take it. Despite having, a well-timed lair, you would have access to Overseers. Doesn't have anything that shoots up reliably.
I'm going to get yelled at by the book nerds because I never read Lord of the Rings, but I saw the movies. And in the movies, they don't really explain why he's not king anymore. I think we're learning the past here and now.
Oh, you're... Unfortunately, I can't help you with this attempted story because I didn't read the books and I kind of fell asleep during the movie. So.
Ooh.
Perfect.
Okay, well, I'm glad there's some deflection. People could be more mad at you for falling asleep during the movies, I think, than me for not reading the books. But I kind of don't like the hesitance here. Demigod, of course, didn't know what was or wasn't. We did, so a little bit fortunate in that regard. But I mean, the problem is there were so many Zerglings, wow. There's so many drones killed by that Hellion run by, combined by the fact that he made, what, like 6 or 7 defensive buildings between spines and spores? I mean, I would scan that too, to be honest. This is such a suspicious looking base. You must be thinking, like, where's the money coming from? Oh, it's because you didn't make units.
There's another gold base, though, which is, I mean, maybe he'll eventually scan that one, but I think he might be realizing this actually just might be it. It's definitely a weird push. We don't have Medivacs along here, and that's usually what you wait for in this matchup, but it's perfectly fine. This is enough damage to kill Aragon King.
Yeah. The Marauders are a very nice touch to this. Buffed or not, there's just nothing to fight back against them. And this will be the death of our Zerg player for game 1, but of course, reminding everybody, these matches are all best of 3, so there's always that chance to come back. But I think we have to see a lot of things tightened up out of Aragon King to make that happen.
Yeah, I could explain the spawning pool timing away with some nerves for sure. You're just like so caught up thinking about the Reaper, and then you make extra 2 drones. Sure, that does happen, but I don't know. The rest of the game also did not look quite as solid as Demigods.
There's that GG Demigod sweeping game number 1 in this best of 3.
GG.
Yo, there's that Key and Peele sketch where they say the name wrong. It's like, I'm looking for an Aaron.
Yes.
I was like, is this Aragon King? Well, but this graphic is quite beautiful. Always enjoy seeing that very subtle 1-0 in the background.
Mm-hmm.
But if I recall, Aragon King was the one who took the funky map, right? Redshift, I think?
He chose Redshift, yeah.
So maybe normal maps are not his forte, and he's got something planned up his sleeve here for game number 2.
With the faster Roach Warren he made on 2 bases, that is kind of a build we are seeing on Redshift, so maybe that's his plan.
Yeah, he was waylaid by the fact that his natural base had normal mineral lines and not gold mineral lines.
It's like, I don't know what to do here.
For some reason, I just don't have the money at the timing I wanted.
Yeah.
Nah, this is such a dangerous map for multiple reasons. I mean, you've got the fact that your mineral line might be denied by a little bit of range. You've also got the fact that it's just a strange map in general. And I gotta wonder if either player is even willing to take that gold. Of course, we're talking about this. I'm pretty confident that was the map pick. We'll revisit them in just a second and take a seat to confirm, but I'm fairly certain it's Redshift coming up next.
Yeah, me too. But Demigod was doing a very typical opener. It was a little late here and there. Maybe the cloak was a little late, but it was one of the safe ones to do, especially with the faster wall that he put up, kind of afraid of those lings. And it provides that aggression as well of Hellion. So I think Aragon King has to be very careful. He's going to take that natural base.
And yeah, there it is, that redshift confirmation. So if this goes to game 3, Acid Plant will be the final destination. Pretty not crazy map. I think actually, aside from the dynamics of Darkness and Redshift, which are the extremes of the 7 maps in the map pool, most of these games in a TVZ specifically are pretty alright. Dreamcatcher's a little questionable, but it's really, the map pool is quite good right now. You've either the 2 bad ones, or you can play pretty comfortably on either of the other 5 as either Terran or Zerg, I think.
The other bad one being Darkness?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Dreamcatcher always freaks me out, but it's not a bad map for sure. It's just takes some getting used to, and well, Darkness Sanctuary is just so big that usually only Zerg wouldn't choose that one.
Well, with this being the destination of Aragon King, we are going to learn whether he's got those gold-based strats or not. Either way, we're hopping into game right now, so folks, spawn here to the bottom left side. He leads 1-0. It's the blue Terran, Demigod.
In the top left, there's the red Zerg. He is Aragon King.
Now, one thing that did kind of strike me as incredibly odd, and it's not the low APM. Like, that's a tease, but we've seen players with slower APM still win games in the past. It's more that Demigod has such high APM for a Terran player.
Yeah,
It's just, to be clear, we're not watching the APM meter constantly, guys, but there's not really a lot for a Terran player to be doing right now, so he's really warmed up, fired up, and ready to go. Zerg, oftentimes, their APM gets almost falsely boosted due to the larva mechanic in the game, but
yeah.
Yeah, the other thing to draw attention to, of course, was that later pool. I like seeing a much better timed pool this time around.
He's still a little bit awkward at 15, but it, as a pool first, I guess it makes more sense, so I also like to see that. Seriously though, Demigod's APM's picking up to 600. He must be spamming hot camera hotkeys. Like, he sure is warming up, I guess. Our Aragon King is like, need to conserve the APM, use it when necessary.
Yeah, he's about to be under
Wise.
siege, you know? He doesn't want to use up all his APM. Find his coffers empty.
I like that Demigod scouts. I think even without the drone scout, that always makes me suspicious personally. I'm just like, okay, what is this here for? It's just a situation where I think he has proven himself the better player with that last game, and he just needs to make sure he doesn't get surprised by like something weird, like a one base Roach Ravager push. So his SCP is actually going to scout that it is a hatchery taken really quite quickly for being a pool first, but only 2 lings are on the way.
I don't know that this truly stifles Terran. I mean, it's not fun having your second gas taken, so it's going to delay your factory, it's going to delay your starport, sure, but I mean, you can play around this pretty easily. He's taking such a quick command center, you could just probably... It almost might be faster to take a refinery at the natural than waste any time killing this.
I think that it is. This does happen occasionally, not really in pro games, but like often enough in ladder games and whatnot, that I do believe just taking the refinery at the natural works out to be okay. Slightly delays cloak, I want to say.
See, there's some beauty in this if this was like a big all-in coming out of Aragon King, but he's gone for an evolution chamber, which I find really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This I don't like the spine.
Well, no, yeah, I was gonna go in kind of that kind of. I was like, I really liked the opener more. And like the drone counts still weren't like exactly what you would want, I guess, but it looked cleaner. He also got like speed as soon as he got 100 gas, for instance. But yeah, he does have these overly defensive habits, like building a spine crawler pretty unnecessarily. He's overly gets full scouting after all, and he knows something weird happening.
Well, I think that the other comment I was going to make, you take that gas, you delay Terran's second gas, meaning their tanks won't be out in appropriate times, and things like Ravager pushes can be really cool, but nothing quite like that here. And I'm trying to just piece together what Aragon King's doing, but I really can't formulate this guy's plan. I do like that he's getting more queens this time earlier. This is going to be good, because Banshees were just kind of actually ridiculous last game. But I don't think the amount of lings and queens and like he's investing in so much that's costing money. Spinecrawler too, the evolution chamber that's not being used. These are so many more drones he could have made.
Yeah, a lot more. He could have had his third already on the
Carapace.
way with more drones, still waiting to really make that lings. Because eventually you do need like 12 lings to deal with the Hellions, but he could have held off on that for a while.
Legends and scriptures have told of the +1 Carapace build, long and forgotten through the days of old. In ancient times, they say, Zerglings used these to take on humans
Well-
with swords and shields, but wow, didn't think we'd see it again in 2018.
The way, like, the timing that he gets it, if he had done a normal build otherwise, like a normal third base and more droning, waiting on lings, this would have been like a nicely timed, like, anti-2-1-1 Carapace kind of thing, right? Like, it doesn't finish at 5, but it finishes for the next push. But he knew what build his opponent was doing. He had the Overlord over it, so that is not the reason he went for that, so...
Actually, what's kind of interesting on that is StarCraft 2 is a game a lot about knowledge. Sometimes you'll see something and you should know what the rest of it is. Maybe this is something where Aragon King just doesn't read it correctly, right? Like maybe he can read Zerg and Protoss like a book, but maybe not Terran. Certainly awkward moves have been made. Regardless, these Hellions will get in here mostly unscouted, so he'll be able to unload these in full and should be able to roast up some drones. I was still hungry after that first game. I did enjoy having to share with the entire AESF audience, so now I can finally get my fill of barbecue.
Yeah, you know, he has those lings, but they just weren't in location. They're all over the map. They're in the natural. This isn't so bad, but the lings, I don't even... Oh, they're attacking their own drone. Oh, make that 6 drones killed, because the
Okay.
lings killed one.
This micro happens. We've seen Koreans kill their own hatcheries, for example. It happens.
Yeah, certainly I've seen that. This is some nice play around the gold base, and this was just...
Oh. I'm really heartbroken right now, actually. Because Aragon King was going to go what kind of feels like a mechish build.
But yeah, concussive shells. So, I don't know. Oh, there's Tim.
Hellbats and Marauders. Okay, well, I take it back. Now I'm not so sad, but Hellbats and Marauders, man, this is reminding me of super old days where you'd have really great Terrans like Pult who would pull off abusive all-ins that are a little better time than this, but will still work out very well in this game because the Banshee, the Hellions, it's all too much. There's just no army supply for Aragon King, and no amount of defensive structures would stop this push.
Yeah. With the Banshee, too, helping take out the Spine Crawler. You know, if he had the Roach Warren available to him and he made, 12 Roaches and the Spine Crawler, I think that this is definitely holdable, but, you know, this game, he was trying to play a more standard game, still slipped here and there, but ultimately, like, the early defenses don't help out at this later point. You need actual units now. That's gaming and damage right there.
I'll tell you what, all the Terrans watching this game wish their games were as simple as this.
Yeah, right? Looks like Aragon King is thinking
Oh, that's
about
the layer too.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, he's slapping on a Spire as if he's gonna, counterattack with it, but...
The what league question when you realize perhaps you are a little outclassed, that little smiley face. Alright, folks, well, looks like we can see GG's thrown down here in just a second. That or we're gonna get some nice drama, but I gotta imagine it's just a simple GG soon to follow.
Yep.
There we go.
GG.
Well, chalk another one up for Terran. Congratulations as victory goes to Demigod.
Welcome back everyone here to the preliminary stage of the StarCraft 2 tournament for the esports event at the Asian Games, located in Jakarta, Indonesia, later on this year. My name is GTR and I'll be providing some English commentary for some of these preliminary games. For this particular match, we'll be having a preliminary game from the West Asian region qualifier between Demigod from Iran against Al-Wajir from Saudi Arabia. As we have a look here at the map pick and ban phase, the map pick, ban and pick phase I should say, the same exact rules are in place for this ban and pick stage as it is for the WCS Global tournaments. In this case, we have the first map being on Acid Plant Ladder Edition, followed by either 16-bit LE or Lost and Found. The bans for both players, Demigod banning Darkness Sanctuary and Redshift, Al-Wajir banning Dreamcatcher and Catalyst. got a Terran versus Protoss here. Got pretty standard 2-player maps being played all around this series, so should see some solid games. Let's get into it. Spawning here at the top left as the blue Terran from Iran, it is a Demigod. And here at the bottom right as the red Protoss from Saudi Arabia, it is Al-Wajh. Alright, so looks like right off the bat, Al-Wajh is going for the quick gas. Meanwhile, Demigod building that supply depot at the ramp. Definitely wants to wall that off. Looks like Al-Wajh is adding in a second gas. And I think we have a pause. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so second gas. As well as a forge. Let's see what Demi decides to do. Okay, he's going to get the quick gas. So it looks like we're going to see a Reaper opening from him. Gateway down here for Al-Wajh. Let's see when he decides to start mining gas from those geysers, those assimilators. So, well, Demi's getting some gas right now. We'll see if he goes straight to the factory or whether it goes for the Reaper. Given the gas count, it should be the quick Reaper for the scout. Got a photon cannon being placed down from Al-Wajh. And indeed from Demigod, it will be the quick Reaper for the scout, followed by the command center at the expansion. Nothing too out of the ordinary here from Demi. Demi, a veteran of the Asian region for StarCraft 2. Seen him around in tournaments. Probably Iran's best RTS player. Al-Wajh, I don't really know too much about them or him. Okay, so see Demi, he'll see that there's a probe being planted there at the front of the base. Probably thinks that there's going to be an expansion going down anytime soon. The Zealot should chase away the SCV. Although if he gets close enough to the ramp, that cannon will be able to kill the SCV. And oh no! The Reaper nearly gets killed there by the cannon. But with some good enough micro, Demigod should be able to kill the Zealot off. Alright, so we got the reactor onto that barracks. We've also got a second barracks as opposed to going for the quicker factory with the tech lab. So he's probably going to go for quick stim. This might just be a modified variant of the 211 build that we see so often in the Terran vs Zerg matchup. Al-Wajh building the Nexus. He's also getting plasma shields for his units. He's also getting a Stalker from that gateway. And yeah, he's going to go for the Stargate. Definitely want to get those oracles out to help with scouting. Also to help with doing harassment in the mineral lines. And as expected from Demi, he will be going for the quick stim. Let's see how much damage he can do with this stim, whether he can find some sort of timing, or he'll just use that for defensive purposes. Alright, so we got Starport going down from Demi. He's also getting a couple of turrets in his mineral line. He definitely knows the threat of oracles in this matchup, so he definitely wants to get those turrets up as soon as possible. Don't see any sort of +1 weapons from him just yet. He's just spending all of his gas on getting those tech upgrades up. Getting his Starport as well as that stim. Got a scan from Demigod. Finds out what Al-Wajh is doing at the moment. Couple more cannons there at the front to help with his defense. At this stage of the game, you should be getting units. You definitely need a unit count to fight head-on with your opponent. Alright, we got the swap of the buildings. We've got the reactor onto that starport. Just go and get those medivacs. It's also got the tech lab onto that factory, although I don't think he's going to be building anything from that factory itself. Probably going to build another barracks on top of that, where the factory used to be. Okay, so we see a Void Ray here from Aluwaje. So it's got the +1 weapons upgrade starting here for Demigod. So it's got the 2 medevacs nearly completed. Most likely we'll be seeing some drop harassment here from Demigod. 2 Void Rays here from Aluwaje. He's gonna move forward here. Let's see if he can do some damage with these. Conversely, Demigod, he's got these 2 medevacs out, full of Marines. Let's see how much damage he can do with them. Aluwaje doesn't have too much of a ground army so far. His defenses at his main base are also quite thin. So I expect Demigod to do a bit of damage. Conversely, we've got the robotics facility being placed down here from Aluwaje. Get them observers out as well as immortals. Alright, here comes a drop here from Demigod. There's absolutely nothing here aside from 1 cannon. And we actually got a recall of the 2 Void Rays. But here we go, Demigod just steps forward, takes out those Void Rays. Demigod being very conservative here. He sees there's 1 cannon, but he can just easily attack the rest of these probes. 19 probes killed here from Demigod. He's also got that Reaper in there, just for some added extra damage to that overall output of that force. Now we got some Liberators coming down here from Demigod from that reactor starport. It's going to do additional damage onto those probes. And with the cannon placement of Aluwaje at the choke point, these Liberators are able to rain free terror onto the probe lines. The Void Ray does chase away the Liberator though, or the Liberators. And with the supply count being 95 for Demigod against 20 of Aluwaje. All Aluwaje is doing right now is just building cannons, but buddy, cannons aren't going to help you in this situation. And we see here, Demigod doing the smart thing, he's adding siege tanks to his composition. He knows that those siege tanks will outrange those cannons. Once those siege tanks do complete, it should be all over for Aluwaje in this game. Alright, so the main base of Aluwaje is pretty much destroyed. Demigod here trying to do a run by. He's gonna able to get himself into this corner. Got another base being plopped down here from Aluwaje, but he's just delaying the inevitable. 108 supply against 17 supply. Got the Liberator here, just adding more damage here to Aluwaje. Demigod getting a few shots onto those probes. 5 probes have been killed. Void Ray goes down as well. Oh, look at this pincer attack here from Aluwaje. From Demigod, excuse me. It's got to be able to take out this base of Aluwaje. But with 1 supply, it seems that Aluwaje is very stubborn, doesn't want to leave this game just yet. As the Nexus is destroyed, as well as the Assimilator. Demigod, probably slightly confused right now. It was fast, a GG. And that should be the game for Demigod. Just waiting on Aluwaje to leave this particular game. And then we should head into the next game. Alright, so even with the GG, Aluwaje is still in this game. Don't really know what to say about that, but okay, finally Demigod finds out this base. Demigod slightly confused that the GG is not followed by a leaving of the game. Demigod's okay with this. And yeah, honestly, there's nothing really much more to add here. The game was finished quite a while ago. And with this assimilator going down, that should be the end of the game. GG, Demigod takes out the first game here in this best of 3 series against Aluwaje of Saudi Arabia. Alright, so Demigod is 1 game ahead of this best of 3 series. from this preliminary group, only one player would be advancing onto the grand finals for the Asian Games located in Jakarta, Indonesia later this year. Once again, my name is GTR. I will be providing English commentary for some of these preliminary matches that will be played over 5 regions. There will be 7 players overall from the regions that will be qualifying, 2 from East Asia, 2 from Southeast Asia, 1 from Central Asia, and 1 from West Asia, as well as 1 from South Asia. So a lot of Asian regions there. And then we've got the 1 seed for the host nation, which will be an Indonesian representative. Once again, this is a demonstration event at the Asian Games this year. Not only StarCraft 2, but we've got a whole bunch of other esports titles that will be being played with. A historic moment not only for sports, but also esports in general. So we wait for this next game to start. A very convincing victory there from Demigod in that previous game. Seems that Alueje is a player who is a bit newer to StarCraft 2, but Asian Games, Olympics, all those global tournaments, doesn't matter what your skill level is, as long as you can represent your country. So all good in the end. Okay, it looks like we're just still waiting for this next game to start. We'll see how Demigod approaches this next game. Maybe he feels a bit more confident. Maybe he'll do some sort of rush, or he'll just play solid and do a macro game. Alright, we're just waiting on to this next game to start. We'll also see whether Alueje has alternate strategies, or he'll be doing the same thing that he did in that previous game. Alright, so we got the map ban and pick phase once again, just to remind you all of how that turned out. The rules are the same as WCS global tournaments all over the world, where we share the same ladder map pool as the actual tournament itself, and vice versa. That first game was on Acid Plant, so with Alueje losing that first game, we'll be going on to 16-bit. If Alueje wins that match on 16-bit, we will be going to Demigod's pick of Lost and Found. Once again, the bans for both players: Demigod banning Darkness Sanctuary and Redshift, Alueje banning Dreamcatcher and Catalyst. Alright, so we're just waiting on this game to start, and we should be there a bit shortly. Okay, there we go. Spawning here at the top right position as the blue Terran from Iran, it is Demigod. And here at the bottom left position as the red Protoss from Saudi Arabia, Alueje. And looks like we're going to see Demigod doing a double proxy. Okay, so we see one SUV. Let's see if there's a second SUV going down. Yes, there is. So we're going to see a dual barracks proxy from Demigod. Let's see if he adds the gas or he opts to go for the Marine Rush. There goes the first barracks, and we see the refinery being built in the production tab. So it looks like this is going to be a 2 barracks Reaper opening from a proxy position for Demigod. Once again, we see Alueje is going for the quick gases, as well as the gateway and the forge. Similar build order as what he did in that previous game. Alright, so we see Demigod actually going for that second refinery. It means that he will be going heavy on those Reapers early on. Also will allow him to transition into those factory and starport proxies if he decides to do so. That will be assuming that the Reaper harassment does not work out for him. And we've got the quick cannon up here for Alueje. But with that cannon, it's not really placed too well for Reaper harassment. The Reaper should be able to pop in from the top side of the base, sneak around that cannon. Alright, so it is indeed the double Reapers, and we see a quick bunker here from Demigod at the low ground. Just forced to cancel though. Probe is going to chase the SV all over the main base. Alright, and here comes the Reaper here from Demi. Let's see how Alregia deals with this Reaper. He's only got one Zealot. And second Reaper is in the base. Cannon does actually get a shot off. Zealot chasing these Reapers though. With good enough micro, he should be able to kill off this Reaper. Nice micro there from Demigod, using that weakened Reaper to bait the Zealots. Gets the hits off. Third Reaper should be joining the party right about now. Alright, here we go. We've got the more micro. Although I don't really like that Demigod has rallied the Reaper in the firing range of the cannon. Alright, and this Reaper harassment, this Reaper proxy, is doing a great work here for Demigod. Should be able to kill off the Zealot. Bang, bang, bang. There we go. And 10 pros being killed here for Demigod. If he just camps behind this mineral line, it should be enough for him to stop the mining of Alregia. Another cannon being placed here from Alregia, but it's not at the optimal position. Means he won't be able to mine. These Reapers just firing down their pistols. Alregia has nothing to deal with this. An Adept or a Stalker would be nice right now, but it doesn't seem that so for Alregia. Alright, Demigod loses a Reaper. And he doesn't cancel the bunker, but the damage has been done already. 22 probes. Dead for Alregia. He's only down to 3 workers. So got 4 amounts of army supply. That is the one Stalker being built, as well as that one Zealot. And just like last game, it should be inevitable that Alregia will GG out. Alright, so we got a group of Reapers here. And I do like how Demigod's being super careful. He even gets the engineering bay. Puts the turret in his mineral line. Who knows? Perhaps Alregia has a proxy Stargate or proxy Dark Shrine somewhere. But as observers, we know that as the all-seeing eye, this game looks quite done. Alright, there we go. I am done. I don't know if that's a declaration of a surrender. We'll have to wait and see. It looks like he's trying to chrono boost out that Stalker once again. Nexus goes down. There we go. No GG, but the declaration of him being done. So, 2 quick games there from Demigod. Nothing but a sweat for him, so he will take home the 2 points for his preliminary group, the West Asian group of these preliminary games. Asian Games 2018, located in Jakarta, for StarCraft 2. Once again, congratulations to Demigod.